Hello, welcome to this episode of Go There on Fourth, a Christian podcast about faith, football, and fantasy football. Normally we have episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thursday, I give you my game picks. Tuesday, I recap how things went. Unfortunately, I had some technical difficulties trying to get the podcast recorded yesterday. I was experimenting with some new streaming things that just had some difficulties with that. On top of that, I'm a pastor, so to people in person comes first over podcasts and other things like that. So that kind of was there too. I would say I'm sorry for that, but I'm not sorry for that. I'm glad I got to spend the time with people I got to spend time with yesterday. It's good times. But that means I am a day behind making my picks. So let's jump right in. I'm 86-63 on the season coming into last night. If you go to the Go There on Fourth Facebook page, you'll see what my pick was, and I picked the Packers. I really thought after they were able to beat the Cowboys and get past that Micah Parsons and that Cowboys defense, they put up 30 points on that defense. So I thought, well, maybe, and I know they're going against the Titans. I know the Titans are old. I know the Titans have Derrick Henry, but I think maybe the Packers have figured it out on offense and will give them a run for their money. Now, initially, when I was going to share this with you yesterday, I said I did add the phrase in there, I may regret this pick. And I did. I do regret it because I got it wrong. So, all right, let's continue on. Bears versus the Falcons. After a lackluster effort physically versus the Panthers, the Falcons were completely dominated on the line of scrimmage in that game, both on their offensive line and their defensive line. Their coach came out and even said as much. Do I think the Falcons are going to make those mistakes 2 weeks in a row? No. I think they're going to come back out, fired up, energized. They're going to go up against the Bears team. A Bears team that is surging right now. It's kind of trending in the right way. But I just don't think the Bears will have enough to beat the Falcons. I think the Falcons are going to come out, play a little angry, play a little more physical after getting a pep talk this week. Now, what this will come down to for the Falcons is if Marcus Mariota will decide to actually play quarterback in the NFL, right, instead of whatever game he was playing last week where he was just throwing things up for grabs. So hopefully he did. As long as Mariota plays smart and they stick to their running game and their defense plays like their defense has been playing for part of the season, I think the Falcons will beat the Panthers. Or not the Panthers. We'll beat the Bears. All right. Browns versus the Bills. Now, this one I have under the early game slate, though it was scheduled to be in the 1 o'clock slate of games, but due to snow, I can't believe this. This is where the NFL has come. This is where football is. I remember back in the day, we played football out in the snow on purpose as kids, right? We get our backyard crew together. We played tackle football in the snow. That was like the highlight of our time off from school was backyard football in the snow. Or if we got a chance to play in the rain, right? I remember one time in Little League where it was pouring buckets of rain from the sky, and we had a couple of kids on our team heading into the game that were afraid to get dirty, so our coach had us doing monkey rolls through the mud. And by the time the game started, our nice clean white pants were muddy and mucky. Our orange jerseys were a faded brown at that point because we had been rolling around the mud all before our game started. But here we are in 2022, where 6 feet of snow is supposed to be being dumped in Buffalo, so they have moved the game to Detroit. So it's no longer going to be at 1 o'clock Sunday. It will be a Sunday or Monday night, and the Bills will be playing from Detroit. Now, I guess in fairness, I did see a meme saying that with 6 feet of snow, and it showed that Devin Singletary is less than 6 feet tall, and there's another player that was listed less than 6 feet. So they might lose them in the snow. So maybe that's really what the league's afraid of. They don't want the snow to be taller than some of their players. I don't know, but they moved this to an indoor game in Detroit. Browns versus the Bills. I'm picking the Bills to win this one. Eagles versus the Colts. Now, I'm not sure if I'm picking the Colts because of my fandom, right? Just because I'm a Colts fan and I feel obligated to pick for the Colts no matter who they're playing against. Or if I actually believe they're going to win. It could be that. I could be believing that they could beat the Eagles. I mean, we just watched the Commanders beat the Eagles. Now, the advantage the Commanders have is there's a division foe, so they play them pretty regularly. It's common, it's that kind of opponent. But I did think the Commanders were able to be more physical up front than the Eagles were. Because really it was the Commanders' running game that won it. Yeah, Heineke came in and played okay. He played decent. He had a couple of terrible boneheaded plays, but he did enough to help them win the game and made some down the field throws. But I really feel it was the physicality of the Commanders that won the game for them. So depends on which version of the Colts offensive line we get this week, I think. I think our defense is going to be fine. I think our defense keep us in the game. We may give up some points to the Eagles, but the Eagles' offense is one you're just going to give up points to. You kind of have to be resigned to that fact. But I think the Colts can win this one. I'm not sure if it's my belief. I'm not even sure if it's partially rebellion, right? Because, of all the negative talk that's surrounding the Colts organization right now and the hiring of Jeff Saturday, part of me just wants to see Jeff Saturday win out just to irritate the people that are that's the rebel in me. But I'm picking the Colts to win because I always pick the Colts to win. That's what you do when you're a fan of a team. All right, Jets versus the Patriots. Now, if this one were at MetLife Stadium, I would still pick the Patriots. Again, it's Zach Wilson, another it's the young quarterback again going against Belichick. Yes, the Jets are playing much better under Coach Saleh. Yes, they're having a season that we've not seen a New York team have in a long time, and both New York teams are having that kind of season this year. But I don't think they've got this one done. There's just something about Patriots teams in November and December that they played the rest of the year. So Rams versus the Saints, picking the Saints in that one. It's kind of a game no one cares about, right? Unless you're a Saints fan or you're a Rams fan. But in my opinion right now, the Rams aren't a playoff team. They're not going to make it. The Saints, I don't know what they're doing. The Saints are just trying to figure out what to do after Drew Brees. It's 2 years later and we're still trying to figure that out. But Saints fans, I understand. It's 2014 was Peyton's last season in an Indy, and I don't think he didn't. That was the year he sat out. And we haven't been the same since either. So, all right, Lions versus the Giants. Going the Giants in this one. Panthers versus the Ravens. Picking the Ravens. Commanders versus the Texans. And the Commanders with Heineke as the starter. I think he needs to be the starter. He's kind of earned the spot to be the starter. So yes, I'm picking the Commanders over the Texans in this one. Although the Texans have only won one, and at some point they're probably going to win a second one. But I don't think it's going to be this week, but I could be wrong. All right, so this is a podcast about faith, football, and fantasy football. And for the fifth time, I always like to share a brief word with you, a devotion. And my devotion today kind of centers around what's happening with Jeff Saturday. Now, I'm not speaking into the controversy side of things. I'm not speaking against the Rooney Rule. I'm not speaking against the hiring practices. I'm not even really speaking to whether with him being hired, to be real honest. I think if you listen to me long enough or you see enough of my posts right now or my reaction to some of those things, you'll begin to understand. As a Colts fan, I'm kind of happy and excited about it. It's out of the box. But, I can understand why someone from the outside looking in would question Irsay and Chris Ballard. Although I don't understand why you're questioning Chris Ballard at this point. I don't think it's Chris Ballard necessarily agreeing with it because it's his job, and Irsay is the one that signs his paycheck. But the part of it I don't understand, I guess, is all the criticism that Jeff Saturday is getting for. I can understand maybe you're criticizing that he's not got the experience, right? He's only coached, and I think he would agree. Being a former analyst for ESPN, that yes, this is an unusual hire. This is not normal. There's something going on, but what I understand is that they're criticizing Jeff Saturday for taking the job. I mean, he said it before, he said in a recent interview that he had always thought about coaching. And maybe even coaching at this level. I'm sure there's other players that thought about coaching at this level. I'm sure many of us, we've come to a place where we've been offered a job that we haven't earned and don't feel like we're all that qualified for. I know as a pastor, I don't feel qualified for the job that I have. We've all been there, but that's not that if we feel like we're called to a job, if we feel like that's a job we're supposed to be doing, and if it's a job that we've always wanted, accept it. I mean, what else were we going to do, right? The opportunity was presented. It was our dream, and it's right there at our doorstep. So we of course, we're going to take it. So I don't understand that kind of criticism. But what kind of is cool to me about this, as Jeff Saturday's faced this criticism, is to notice kind of what's happening around him. Pat McAfee came on the Pat McAfee show, and he completely went on the offensive to defend Jeff Saturday getting hired for this job. He touted all of Jeff's qualifications as a player. Playing for 14 years, he played for Tony Dungy, he played with Peyton Manning, he played with Aaron Rodgers, he played with all these great players. So McAfee came out and defending that way. Edgerrin James, longtime Colts running back, Hall of Famer, right? He went on Twitter and he just, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he made a post let everyone know that he was backing Jeff Saturday. He was going to stand by his friend that just got the job of his life. Jeff Saturday's family is kind of, they're kind of, guarding Jeff from the outside into the situation right now, because Jeff is busy trying to do the job and he's not paying attention to himself. But what this family's trying to do is things from getting into distracting from what's happening. And then I'm sure there's others. I mean, there's plenty of Colts fans rallying around him. I'm sure there's more people than I even know that are rallying to Jeff Saturday's side as he has taken this role on. It's people seeing someone they love and that they care about. And most likely they love and care about this person because Jeff Saturday cared about them or cared about what they were doing together enough to make an impact on their lives, right? Pat McAfee played with Jeff Saturday. He knows the kind of Jeff Saturday is. There's a friendship there. There's a camaraderie. And Pat's speaking up for a friend, right? And friendships, they don't just happen. They happen out of a common situation. They happen out of conversation. And real friendships are for because of the bond that's formed, the influence that's gained between one another. He's Jeff Saturday's kids, Jeff Saturday's wife, right? His wife chose him for a reason, and she loves him, and she's standing by him as his kid. He as a kid, you don't get to choose your parents, but obviously his dad had enough impact on his life for him to stand up for him. Again, the others, right? Maybe we don't know Jeff Saturday personally, but as a Colts fan, I grew up watching him. I grew up watching that team, right? And so there's the memories associated with that. So we've kind of seen a bit of the Colts family rallying around in support of Jeff Saturday in this moment. And I think this is what Jesus is trying to communicate to his disciples in John chapter 13, right? This is what the Apostle John records in his gospel. And Jesus is kind of giving these final words before all the garden and the Last Supper takes place, before the crucifixion and all that. And to kind of give you some more context, Jesus, he's getting ready to be crucified and he's getting ready to be resurrected. So Jesus knows that he's been traveling these several years with his disciples in person. He's been teaching them in person. They've physically had him, right? But Jesus knows because of the resurrection that was going to take place, and then after that, where he's going to ascend back to the Father, he knows that their relationship is going to be different from where it was at that present moment. The disciples were not going to have Jesus present with them in the same way. So this is what Jesus says to them. He says, I'm reading in John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. And he's just got done telling them that I'm going to be crucified. I'm going to rise again. I'm going to go and be glorified with God. Well, now the Son of Man is glorified and God is glorified with him. So he's connecting the dots between him and God there. Sorry, I kind of got the mess. Anyway, this is what he says in verse 34 and 35. He says, now I give you a new command. Love one another. Just as I have loved you, you are also to love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So Jesus, his big advice, and he's reclining at the table with his disciples. He's sitting there. He's had a meal with them. This isn't the Last Supper, but he's had a meal with them. And his words of wisdom to them is, my command I give you is this: I want you to love each other. We're called to love God and love everyone, right? We're called to love God and love people. That's what the Ten Commandments boil down to. That's what Jesus keeps pointing us to. But what Jesus is also saying is, hey, you right now, you have left behind your careers. You have left behind your family to come follow me. It's going to be really important that you're shared, you've shared this experience with me together. I have brought you together, to be for this group, to be a part of this fellowship. And Jesus knows what the days lie ahead for them, what they're going to face, and they're going to have the presence of God with them. And Jesus is God, but they're not going to have Jesus physically with them. They're going to have the Holy Spirit with them in that moment. But Jesus understands for them to be able to survive, be able to make it, is that they're going to have to love one another. It's going to be their love, not just for Jesus, but their love for one another, that's going to hold them together and keep them together through that difficult time. Matter of fact, Jesus has been demonstrating this to his disciples throughout the ministry together, right? Remember, Jesus sends them out, the 72 out, to cast out demons, to heal the sick, and do all the things that Jesus himself was doing. And remember, Jesus sends them out 2 by 2. He doesn't send them out 1 by 1. He sends them out together, because why? They need each other. And Jesus knows for the church to be able to grow and blossom, for the work of the kingdom to get done through the power of the Holy Spirit, they are going to have to not only trust the Holy Spirit and rely on their love for Jesus and their love for God and their dedication and faith in God, but they're going to have to love and have faith in each other. And Jesus says this, he says, now by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So the way we as Christians interact with each other, not just, we talk about loving God and loving others. That includes people of the outside the faith. Yes, we are to love them, but by loving each other in the fellowship, and by the way we love each other. The way love is not accountability. Love is as encouragement. Love is support. Love is walking alongside. Right? That's part of what love is. And do that, will let the world know that you're my followers. Now, I don't know where Pat McAfee is religiously. Okay, I don't know. I don't know where Edrin James is religiously. Jeff Saturday talks about going to church in Georgia, and I'm assuming his family goes with him. And I'm not sure where everybody that surrounds Jeff Saturday is at in this moment. But in this moment, who has demonstrated love to these people, they are reciprocating that love by rallying to him in this moment. That's what you and I. Now, there are going to be time, when part of that is, it may not mean we're going to drop F-bombs in defense of somebody. It doesn't mean we're going to go scorched earth and burn the whole world down in defense of someone. And it doesn't even mean that if someone's wrong that we just, that's not what I'm saying either. But we are called to support each other. We are called to stand by each other. That's what Jesus did for his disciples. That's what Jesus does for you and me. And that's what Jesus is calling us to do for one another in our fellowships. We are to stand up for our fellow believers. We are to stand up for those facing injustice. We are to stand up for those standing alone. And so many times people that are standing alone because they have done something. And understand, by us rallying to them and standing beside them, it's not meaning we're condoning what they do or accepting that what they did was right. But what we're doing is letting them know that they're loved in their whole lives. It may have big consequences attached to it. It may change the direction of their life, but it doesn't have to have the final say. Being a disciple of Jesus means you love God, you love others, and you love those in the church. Brothers and sisters, you love those who are part of the fellowship. Well, if you like this devotional, I'm Jason Barnett. I'm the pastor at the Ravenna Church of the Nazarene here in Ravenna, Kentucky. You can learn more about us by visiting ravnaz.com. Our address is 530. Our services start Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We'd love for you to join us in person. If you live too far away or you can't make it, feel free to join us on Facebook. We live stream the service on there as long as the technology cooperates. And if you or you can't make it that time, you can watch the video later. I usually post the video to YouTube as well. Same channel as this video is appearing on. Or you can check it out via the Dirt Pastorman podcast. All right, let's continue on with my game picks. All right. Raiders versus the Broncos. I read an interesting article yesterday about Russell Wilson. I don't know the accuracy of this. I can't remember. I think it wasn't Sports Illustrated, but it was I read an article saying that perhaps part of the problem with the Broncos offense is that Russell Wilson is mixing up the auto terminology with what he did, the Seahawks terminology, and he's playing for the Broncos. That I would understand why that would create some problems and miscommunication. But whatever is going on with the Broncos offense, they're broken. And I think it's going to take more than what can happen in the rest of the season to fix it. Or given Russell's another season in this offense, in this organization, to give him a chance to kind of grow. I mean, to me, what's amazing is, we just watched Tom Brady switch and go from one team, go from the Patriots to the Buccaneers, and we watched Peyton Manning, go from the Colts to the Broncos and win a Super Bowl there. And so those two guys made it look really easy to play your quarterback for one team for your entire career, and then change another team. Stafford, same thing. He didn't win the Super Bowl with the Lions, but he left the Lions with the Rams and bam, Super Bowl. Those guys made it look easy. But what we're seeing is the reality of it is a hard thing to do. And to me, that just adds to their legendary definitely Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Matthew Stafford, I mean, we got kind of a little bit like he played for the Lions for the majority of his career. But how great of players they were that they were able to accomplish what they did, switching teams. And I'm not saying, Matt Ryan, I'm not saying Matt Ryan's a bad quarterback, but he's had a rough year, right? It's not been all smooth sailing and the transition from Atlanta to Indianapolis. Now he's back in it, and I do think with him in it than it did, right? Well, at least last week. We have, when we, before they went to Ellinger, I understood the switch because Matt Ryan was struggling, turning the ball over. You can't be turning the ball over that way. Anyway, but Matt Ryan is showing us it's difficult. Russell Wilson, he's showing us it's difficult to go from one system to another and just like that win games. And as bad as the Raiders have been this year, I'm picking the Raiders. I think the Broncos offense is broken. They have a good defense still, but I think the Raiders they should come out a little bit fired up, right? There's been a lot of talk about Jeff Saturday beating Josh McDaniels, right? And let's just hire a bunch of random coaches off the street to see if they can beat Josh McDaniels too. Which I thought was kind of mean, but and as frustrated as Derek Carr was after that last game in that Raiders team, I think they come out with a little bit more energy. I think they come out a little bit more and fired up, and I think they find a way to get done with against the Broncos. So, Cowboys versus the Vikings. Going the Vikings on this one. What's interesting about this matchup is it's two teams that typically let us down this time of year. It's two teams that they get hot and they have, like the Cowboys did, and like the Vikings are on right now. In a lot of ways, I felt like the Vikings were trying to be the old Vikings in the game against the Bills, right? The Cousins interceptions, and some things like that, but the Bills just kept handing it back to them. Game, right? But then again, this Vikings team, they keep finding ways to win despite their poor play. The Cowboys, on the other hand, I don't, Prescott didn't look great last week. Their defense struggled against the Packers. And the Vikings are red hot. I just think the Vikings are going to pull this one off. Bengals versus the Steelers. Okay. TJ Watt's back for the Steelers. Talking with my friend, you guys remember Christian Bishop, who was a guest on this podcast a while back. And he's a big Steelers fan. I was talking with him. And he's not so sure at the moment if Kenny Pickett is the answer long term. Kenny Pickett's kind of struggling in the offense. Maybe part of the problem is it Kenny Pickett? Is it the offensive coordinator? Is it the offensive system that he has? Is the fact that he has a defensive-minded head coach instead of an offensive-minded head coach? I think Colin Cowherd, that there might be a little bit of truth to all of that somewhere in there. But TJ Watt's back, and that makes that Steelers defense different. That Steelers defense is going to play at a high level, and they're going against the Bengals. The Bengals have been able to run the ball recently. They have Joe Burrows, and Joe Burrows is going to be Joe Burrows. But I think the Steelers get this one done because, the game is in Pittsburgh. And I'm not saying it's going to be the same crazy game that we saw the first game of the season where the Steelers were able to beat the Bengals in that one. But I think the Steelers are going to get them again. I think the Steelers are that team that just know how to squad. One of those, and I think it's going to happen again. All right, my team struggle. All right, this is where I share with you my plan for my fantasy matchup this week. What's going on with my team? I'm in a 12-team PPR league with custom scoring. We give partial points for completions, partial points for targets, partial points for carries, on top of your points per catch. I'm in a league. It's a league with church friends and some other friends from around. Currently, my team is called Don't Be a Suck Up. We're 4-6. We started off 1-6, but we've been on a bit of a 3-game winning streak. So and that 3-game winning streak has me back on the cusp of the playoffs. In our league, it's 12 teams. 7 of those 12 teams make the playoffs. So as long as you're not in that bottom 5, you will be in the playoffs. And last week I told you I was in number 9 seed. I got a win against the number 8, and it bumped me all the way up to the 8th. I moved myself up to the 8th seed, and I'm playing the 7th seed this week, and he's a division opponent. So if I want to make the playoffs, I definitely have to win this week, and I'm going to have to win some more games after that fact to kind of hold the playoff spot that I'm attempting to get. That's how tight it is in our league right now. So this week, though, I have some problems, and it starts right off the bat, the quarterback spot. Again, I told you we get points per completions. We get full 6 points for a quarterback touchdown pass on top of the yardage points. And so quarterback is your money-making position. It's your most important one. And I picked up Geno Smith a couple weeks ago. He's been playing lights out, 60, 70 points a game so far. But he's on a bye week. So my options are Derek Carr, Derek Carr or go look. I'm just going to tell you, I've already kind of done some adjusting to my lineup right now, and I end up going with Jimmy G from the 49ers. They're playing against the Cardinals. Yes, it's in Mexico City, but it's Jimmy G. He may not throw a lot necessarily make a lot of mistakes either, but I think the way that running game looked last week against the Chargers, I mean, they just bullied the Chargers defensive front, and then they were pretty much doing whatever they wanted in most of the second half, whether it was throwing or running the ball. So I'm going with Jimmy G. I feel pretty decent about it. I think he's a better option than Derek Carr, who's going against the Broncos. Again, I know I picked the Raiders to win to beat the Broncos. Be a typical divisional struggle in that one. So running back 1, I have Austin Eckler. He's going against the Chiefs. I know in their first matchup, he's held Eckler at 2.8 yards per rush, but they also gave up 9 catches to Eckler. Is in a better place right now, and he's been playing much better than in that early part of the season. Yes, last couple weeks he hasn't had a ton of yards, but man, in the PPR league, he's racking up points through the air as well as on the ground. And he's about due for another multiple touchdown game. So I'm going with Eckler at running back 1. Running back 2, I still have Jamal Williams. Yes, he's going against the Giants running backs, but the Giants, despite being 6th place, are allowing the 3rd most yards per carry to running backs. And Jamal Williams is getting the early down carries for the Lions, and he's getting a lot of carries in the red zone in other situations. So Jamal Williams, I'm going to stick with him. Receiver 1 is another big problem for me, right? I have Tyreek Hill at receiver 1. He's a guy you ride with no matter what happens, no matter who they're playing. But unfortunately, Tyreek Hill is on a bye week, so you can't when he doesn't play at all. So my options, Allen, and he's going against the Chiefs. That's a favorable matchup, but, man, he's still listed as questionable. Am I ready to trust Keenan Allen yet, that he'll actually play? And if he plays, will he go? And he wasn't very effective when he was in the game. Perhaps that's why he took some more time off. I'm going with at this point is I'm going with Paris Campbell. I think he's going against the Eagles. I think when Matt Ryan is playing quarterback for the Colts, Paris Campbell gets more looks and more opportunities. And if you listen to Matt Ryan when he had some media time this week, they interviewed him and he talked a lot about Paris Campbell as seeing, and as Campbell's confidence has grown, he's continued to make more and more plays. So I think that continues this week. So I'm going with Paris Campbell in place of Tyreek Hill for now, for better or worse. Receiver 2, I'm going with Deontay Johnson versus the Bengals. He's got a tough matchup, but still, Deontay Johnson gets targets and catches in this offense. And again, at some point, he's got so many targets and so many catches this season. At some point, he's going to have to score. He's going to score a touchdown. The odds are there. The numbers are pointing in that direction. At some point, he's going to score a touchdown. Some week, it's going to happen. It could be this one. Now, tight end, I'm going Dalton Schultz versus the Vikings. The man went against the Packers. I think they were at least top 10 against opposing tight ends last week, and he still scored a touchdown on 6 catches. And now he's going against Minnesota's 24th ranked. So I'm feeling really good about that matchup with Dalton Schultz in the game. Flex going with James Conner. I am concerned because Conner's going against the number one running defense against running backs in the 49ers. But Conner's volume, right? He's getting – and they just cut one of his backups. So that's going to assure him more carries, more touches in the ballgame. He had 20 carries last week. So I'm pretty excited about that. Defense. This one might be a bit crazy, and it kind of maybe I made, but I'm going with the Steelers defense against the Bengals. I think with TJ Watt back, you're going to see sacks and you're going to see more turnovers. They're going to probably give up yards. They're probably going to give up touchdowns, but sacks and interceptions are how you score defense, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to get some turnovers and some sacks in this ballgame. I mean, they got two last week, and Watt didn't even play every down. He played, in situations. So, kicker, I had to make a change at kicker too. I was going with Myers. So I get with Brett Mayer going against the Vikings there. What team is he on? No, the Cowboys. The Cowboys kicker. Again, it's just who was available. So again, I'm against the division opponent, and my opponent has just lost Cooper Kupp, so that kind of helps me. But still a tough task. Right now, I'm projected to lose 196.6 to 198.9. He had somebody play last night. Oh, it was Lazard from the Packers. Scored him just under 10 or right at 10, somewhere in there. So it's a lot of hope. Still, though, that projection doesn't always mean everything, right? As long as you're within a couple points, it may work out in your favor. What are you doing for your family? Where are you at with your team? Is there somebody you're struggling with, trying to decide between who to start, who to sit? Doesn't matter if it's PPR league or standard. Let me know which one. I'd love to give you some advice. It might be terrible. You might want to do something else, but that's okay. I'd love to hear from you. Just there on the Facebook page and leave a comment. You can go to dirtpassermanpodcast.com and go to the contact page and contact me that way. You can contact me on Twitter or wherever else you found the link to listen to this podcast or watch it. You can leave a comment on YouTube. I would be happy to communicate with you on that. All right, picks for primetime, the real primetime game. First, the Chargers. I'm going with the Chargers in this one. I think the Chargers, they've been in a lot of primetime games. They haven't played up expect for them all year long, really. But I think the Chargers get it done this week. I think they beat the Chiefs. Let me double check myself. Make sure I didn't write that one down wrong. Give me just a second. Did I get that one wrong? Because I don't remember picking the Chargers necessarily. Yeah, I did. I picked Chargers. All right, Chargers. 49ers versus the Cardinals. 49ers. I don't know if you saw, there was a picture of standing next to Trent Williams on the 49ers, and Trent Williams' arm was almost bigger than the entire person of Kyler Murray. So that's pretty scary to think about. Now, will Kyler Murray play? I don't know. We see more of Colt McCoy. I don't know. But I don't think it matters who the quarterback is. I know DeAndre Hopkins is probably going to get his points in this. I know James Conner is going to get his points, but I think the 49ers win. I mean, the way the 49ers offense wore out the Chargers defense, and the Chargers I feel like have a much better defense than the Cardinals. Anyway, so all right, go to bye week Batmans. These are players I think you can pick up. These are players that were available in free agency in my league, my 12-team league. These guys may or may not be available in yours. But these guys I'm giving you my bye week Batmans, people that you can bring in, and they will be your hero for the week. At quarterback, I think you can go with Jimmy G. I'm going with Jimmy G. I know he's playing in Mexico. I don't think it matters. I think they can play in the middle of downtown anywhere, right? And they're going to win. Joker, I wouldn't go with Colt McCoy. I would not go with Colt McCoy against this 49ers defense. They have the second coming of Troy Polamalu to go with the defensive line and everybody else. I am not feeling really good about Colt McCoy's chances in this one. Running back, I would go with James Cook against the Browns. Especially if you're in a PPR league, I think he's going to get some touches in this one. I think he's going to get a few carries. Joker, do not go with Hubbard from the Panthers. I wouldn't actually go with any of the Carolina running backs at this point. I've his defense a hard time all season, but something about that Roquan Smith trade, that defense has looked a little more stout the last couple of weeks. So I would be leery of starting the Panthers running backs at this point. The Panthers don't really have many other options other than to run the ball, but again, I would be leery of it. I think a receiver you could pick up is Micah Gallup versus the Vikings. Again, it was a very tight, high-scoring game between the Vikings and the Bills. So now the Cowboys are coming in. I think this is going to be higher scoring than what this should be a high-scoring game, and I think Gallup will get some touches and catches in this one. Joker, do not pick up any Raiders wide receivers not named Devontae Adams. If you have Devontae Adams, understand he may have a bit of a rough week, but he is the go-to guy for the Las Vegas Raiders. But if you have any of the other receivers, stay away from them. I would not go with them this week. At tight end, the guy I was going to tell you to pick up, but it's too late now, was Tanya versus the Titans. I don't know how he did. I think I only saw him had one catch, so that would have been a terrible one. That would have been terrible advice right there. But also, I wouldn't go against Jawan Johnson. Saints is going against the Rams. I would stay away from him. Defense, I would go with, and it's the same matchup. I defense and come out ahead. I think you can go with the Bengals defense or the Steelers defense, either one, and you could come out ahead this week. Either one of those defenses could do a good job of filling in. The one I would stay away from is the Broncos. Again, I'm picking the Raiders to win. I think it's going to be a close game, but the Raiders' offense is pretty decent. I mean, the Colts were ahead most. The Raiders kept finding ways to get back in it. And if it hadn't been for the pass breakup by Gilmore at the end of the game, we'd be talking about a different outcome right now. So, I would stay away from the this week. All right. Do you have any questions about faith and football? Again, please send them in. Be sure to check out my other podcast, the Dirt Pass Sermon Podcast. It's my weekly sermon from here at RavNaz. You can find it on the dirtpasssermonpodcast.com. You can find it through any of your also, follow me on TikTok. I'm the Dirt Path Pastor on TikTok. I share daily devotional videos. Be sure to check those out, share them. I don't know what else you have for me today, but it's been good talking to you. And happy fantasy football. And hopefully you get the win this week as you're making your playoff push.